Well, we have weather going on both coasts and in the middle. Tonight, we've got winter weather advisories up for inland sections for a little touch of freezing rain, perhaps tomorrow morning. I'm not so sure how much we're going to get. Maybe some snow further to the north. We've got some heavy rain and flash flooding going on in the middle Mississippi and Ohio parts of the lower Ohio Valley, and a new winter storm in the northwest. Actually, probably the first winter storm of the season for many areas in the northwest. It's all happening on this Thursday, the next to last day of January, on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which of course you can support by very simply shopping on Amazon using our referral link that's on the top of the chat board, or it's on the description to this podcast. It's very easy. Just go use the link, search for your stuff, you buy it. Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. It doesn't cost you one penny out of your pocket, and it's an easy way to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So I have this idea today, Mr. Rayo, that they have these winter sweater advisories that are up for Northeast Pennsylvania and parts of northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, Western Connecticut, Western Mass. But for the southern areas of that zone, I kind of think that I just think if the rain doesn't come in fast enough, it's probably going to be minimal as far as any icing is concerned. So maybe this is a CYA type forecast.
I know what you mean. Yeah, the I timed this out thinking that the precipitation would start moving in along about 5 or 6 in the morning, and that's of course when everything just starts to roll in terms of the morning commute. That's going to be tricky because usually school districts, if you're the head of a school district, for example, you look outside, you step outside. If it's not doing anything, let's say 5 or 5:15, you say, well, all right, we won't have the delay of a couple of hours to open. And then if it starts, let's say around 6, and things start to ice up shortly thereafter, then you're in trouble. So this is going to be a problematic type scenario tomorrow. I agree with you. I think that the temperatures, the freezing temperatures, are going to be marginal, but just cold enough maybe north of 287, especially north of I-84. My daughter, for example, is in Ulster County and lives around the New Paltz area. I certainly think they're going to have a problem tomorrow morning. But for where I am, down here, just south of 84 and north of 287, there may be a couple of hours of freezing precipitation. It may be enough for the need to delay the opening of schools. But whatever we get tomorrow in terms of frozen precip, pretty well should be over with everywhere by 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And right after that, it goes over to plain rain, a chilly rain or a cold rain, if you will, but rain. And that looks like to be the story for Friday. Rain much of the day and into Friday night with temperatures rising to well above freezing. And then after all that is over with, we sweep into the weekend, which should be basically fair and also dry.
Yeah, South Jersey might actually even get into the 50s tomorrow before it's all said and done. Yeah, what strikes me about this is when I looked at any of the different. If you look at any of the models today, usually they show they'll put in the purple for sleet and the pinkish red for freezing rain. None of them have anything. They have it all rain. So I'm just kind of wondering if the temperatures are just going to, pop up above freezing before the rain gets in most places. You're right. You go north of 84, it's a bit of a different story. I certainly would agree with that. So this is not going to be this is not going to be an ice storm by any stretch of the imagination. If you're out tomorrow and you're in the advisory area, if you're out tomorrow morning, just take it easy in case you do hit some slick spots. But you're right. By mid morning, it's all rain everywhere, and it will also be enough rain so that this will not be the The driest January on record for New York City, anyway.
Yeah, we had thought for a long time that this would be the driest January on record. Certainly, it'll be one of the drier, maybe within the top 5 or top 10, certainly, but certainly not the driest. The driest would be, I think, something like 0.54. We're at 0.45 inches, and we're certainly going to pick up at least a couple of tenths of an inch tomorrow, depending upon, you know, where you are in the tri-state or Central Park. But it looks like it's going to be not the driest January on record, thanks to this final day of January being a bit on the wet side.
Quiet John's on the chat board, Joe. He's telling everybody to stop whining, and I agree with that, Quiet John. And thank you for hitting the tip jar. You're extremely generous. Thank you so much, Quiet John, hitting super chat tonight. All right, welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to those of you who are watching in the background. We love you, lurkers. You can join the conversation if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. If it's a stormy Friday and Saturday, we would normally add an extra show or two. This weekend, this Friday and Saturday clearly do not qualify under that criteria. And if you like the show, by all means, hit the like button. So, shall we start tonight's procession, Mr.
Yes,
Graham?
certainly. And when you get a chance, also allow me to share because I want to share something before the show is over.
All right. Would you rather share it now?
Yeah, we might as well just since we have we may lose some people, let's say later on. So what I have to say maybe is worthwhile doing right now.
Do it now. Go ahead.
Do it now. Do it now. Yeah, we not tomorrow night. Thankfully, it will not be tomorrow night because tomorrow will be a rather dreary, cloudy day. But we are looking for some better weather to come for the start of the upcoming weekend, and that's good that it's going to be generally fair and dry and clear, especially for this coming this coming Saturday night, because we're going to have an interesting celestial show going on in our sky. Now, if I could just simply get the share button to work, here we go. There we are. I do believe there, and there you go. This is what a lot of you, I hope, will look for on Saturday night. I've been joking, Joe, around the house. Saturday we have our party for our grandson. Our grandson Julian is going to turn 1 year old on Sunday, Groundhog Day. We're having a party for him on on Saturday, I should say. And today, when we were watching him, I playfully said, "Pop Pop has made a special arrangement with the powers that be above to put a special decoration in the sky on Saturday night to celebrate or to commemorate your birthday. And for all the rest of you on Saturday evening, instead of having an after dinner mint, how about a celestial treat? We are going to have, for those who look skyward toward the west-southwest sky as darkness falls on Saturday, a close conjunction of a slender waxing crescent moon with the brilliant planet Venus. And of course, I just mentioned, I think Joe will agree, weather forecasts for Saturday evening are looking very good, mainly clear skies. And the show, if you want to call it a show, is going to run from sunset, which will be at 5:14 p.m. or thereabouts, until the dynamic duo sets beyond the western horizon just after 9 p.m. The two of them, the moon and the planet, will be closest together at 7:22 Eastern Time, when they'll be separated by just 2.3 degrees. Now, what conjunctions are? They're coincidental alignments of two or more celestial objects in the sky as we see them from our vantage point here on the Earth, although the moon and Venus are actually separated by millions of miles. Venus on Saturday will be 47.9 million miles from the Earth, but the moon, which is our nearest neighbor in space, will be 211 times closer at a distance of 227,000 miles. So Saturday, this pairing is going to be easily visible, even from heavily light polluted metropolitan areas. Like, even if you're in midtown Manhattan with all the lights shining, you'll still be able to see them because the moon and Venus are the two brightest objects in the night sky, and their close proximity to one another on Saturday night should create a very striking celestial display. Literally, this is a celestial sight that will call attention to themselves, even for those who don't normally care to look up at the sky. A lot of people will be walking around on Saturday evening, probably coming home from dinner or going to a show or something, looking up at the sky and saying, "What is that?" Well, a little bit, and maybe some people will think that next to the moon there's a UFO or maybe even a drone, but it's not. It's the brightest planet in our sister planet, actually, in the solar system, the planet Venus, thanks to sunlight reflecting from clouds containing sulfuric acid. That's a lovely thing to think about, right? Having imagine being on a planet where when it rains sulfuric acid. That's the stuff that's inside of your car battery. But it's the sulfuric acid atmosphere that makes Venus so very, very bright. So it should look, I think, really spectacular, particularly beautiful. And you could just imagine the astrological significance that the ancient stargazers might have had ascribed to this, to such a celestial tableau as this. They would have looked up at the sky and said, "Well, what does this mean? This must mean something. They don't get together like this too often." But if you have your using your bare eyes, it'll look very nice. If you have binoculars, it'll almost impart kind of a three-dimensional effect. It'll enhance. You see here that you see the crescent phase of the moon, but you'll also be able to see the darkened side of the moon as well, the unilluminated portion of the moon, and that is called earthshine. The moon appears as a thin arc of yellowish white light enclosing a ghostly bluish gray ball, and that effect is caused by sunlight reflected from the earth illuminating the night side of the moon. If you were anywhere on this part of the moon, the dark side, and were looking up into the sky, you would see a nearly full earth. And the earth from the moon looks about 4 times bigger and about 50 or 60 times brighter because of our atmosphere, the clouds, the oceans. It's a much, much brighter effect the Earth is from the moon as opposed to the moon from here on the Earth. And so, if that's the only thing that's in the sky, in your sky, that's what's lighting up the landscape. The lunar landscape is the light of the Earth, Earthshine. And that makes the whole disk visible. And it's one of nature's most beautiful sights. And it fits the old saying, the old moon in the new moon's arms. Anyway, that will be what you'll be able to see on Saturday evening from sunset to about 9 o'clock at night. And I hope all of you get a chance to look at it, enjoy it. It's, again, a lovely, lovely sight. And hopefully it'll take your mind off of the other worldly, crazy things that have been happening in recent days and recent weeks, just to, commune with nature and to enjoy what will be a very, very lovely celestial sight for all to see on Saturday night. And it will be clear so that you'll be able to see it. Joe.
Wonderful. I think it'll be clear here too. Although I'll have to climb up to the top of the mountain in order to get away from all the trees. It
Well,
won't be
actually,
able
to
to
tell
see
you
it.
the truth, Venus right now is about as high in the sky as it can possibly get for any apparition. And so if you go out right after sunset, Joe, unless you are next to a very tall tree or a very tall mountain, Venus is about halfway up into the sky. So
Yeah,
it,
yes,
it's
yes, on
it's
both counts.
it's going to soar along with the moon on Saturday evening.
Well,
So
I'll
get
I'll
a chance to look at it.
I'll try and find it. Just want to touch on one thing here. That I've seen it on the chat board a few times, and I guess today's a good day to kind of bring this up. Nor'easters have not disappeared. Okay, we go through these stretches sometimes, and it could be a year, it could be longer than that, it could be 2 years, where the pattern's just not right for nor'easters. It certainly isn't right for nor'easters with the kind of pattern we have had pretty much all through the winter so far. But on the other hand, you get stretches where you get one once a week, three or four of them in a row. We've done that too. So we're just kind of we're in a cycle period here where snow is lacking and nor'easters are lacking. And actually, you probably have more nor'easters in the late winter and in the spring than you do during the dead of winter. It's just the way the atmosphere works. And
I yeah, I frankly don't know why people want nor'easters. Now, I will admit again, when I was very young, the same with you, Joe, we got very excited when nor'easters took place, especially in the wintertime, the potential for a significant snowfall. However, when you and I were working at FiOS 1, I think it was 2018, we had that month of March where we had the four Easters.
right, the four Easters, four nor'easters,
Four,
and I mean four real powerhouse storms. They weren't
right.
just moderate nor'easters; they were killer nor'easters,
I mean,
especially
like
the
I think three out of the four, you and I had to go to the hotel that they put us up at,
right. And
and
on the
yeah,
last one, which was on March 25th, I had this long-standing feud with somebody that insisted that Long Island could never see a 1 foot snowstorm, and I forgot what date he gave, like March 5th or something. Okay. And and I told him that was just nonsense. And I haven't spoken to this person since the last nor'easter, which was on March 25th, and Iceland got 24 inches of snow out of it. So so there's that. This was the surface maps I have up here on this date in 2022 was probably the last area-wide big snowstorm that occurred with 1 foot plus amounts along the New Jersey coast. It was more of a coastal event than it was an inland event. I think New York City got like 9 inches. Islip got 24. Was it 20 or 24? 24, I think. And this is just how the surface map. What made this one, as you remember, Joe, you should remember this, very unusual, was the fact that we had an Arctic boundary in there. I just lost the maps. Let me bring them back up again. 2022, 29th, and let's go to previous. But you see this front that's running through upstate New York and central Pennsylvania into West Virginia. Behind it was bitter cold Arctic air. When you run up into Canada, temperatures were below zero, and then, of course, you had the developing low. The air ahead of it was cold, was marginal, and as the storm intensified, it drew that Arctic boundary in, and we saw the temperatures fell to the single digits while it was still snowing. And I remember you said with that one you needed everything froze, so you needed basically an ice pick to get everything off. But this was the last big one here, 2022, 3 years ago. And since on average, uh, the New York City tri area, well, New York City itself, on average, gets a 1 foot plus snowstorm on average every 3 years or so. Maybe it's a little bit less than that, maybe 2.7 years or 2.8 years because of all the big ones we had in the 2000 to 2020 period. So that we've gone 2 winters and part of a third without a big snowstorm is not unusual. It's nothing new. We've gone 1970 to 1977, 7 years without one. 1980 from 1984 to 1990 through 1992, which was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2. That was a 9 year stretch between drinks at the well for a major snowstorm. So everybody just lighten up, okay? Um,
I,
yeah,
and I do remember that storm well. In fact, if you want to flick back to my screen, I'm sharing a picture of yours truly Uh, Joe, according to my Facebook page, and I said here, compared to Long Island, we had only 4 inches of snow from today's nor'easter. I think Long Island had what, 1 or 2 feet of snow from
Yeah,
that.
Islip got 24.
Okay, so we only had 4 up in Putnam Valley, but as you can see, the temperature when I went out to shovel and to get rid of the snow was all of 9 degrees. And you could see the look on my face pretty much tells the story. It was not fun to try to shovel away. It was also rather gusty. The winds were blowing. It probably felt like sub-zero out there for much of the time that I was out there trying to take care of or clear away the snow. So, yeah, I remember that storm well. It was a Saturday, and uh, all I could say is to people who say, "Well, I love the snow. I wish it snowed all the time." Maybe it would be more fun if it were like 20 degrees warmer. But this was not fun. This most definitely was not a storm that I cared to remember with any fondness.
Right. David Fuller, thank you for hitting super chat tonight. Really appreciate it very much. All right, let's get going here with what's happening at the moment. And we've got winter weather advisories up, as I said earlier, northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, going all the way up to north of Albany, also back west into parts of southern New York, including the Catskills, western Connecticut, western Rhode Island. Uh, you probably need to go up close to I-90 to get any snow out of this. We've got flash flood watches up in West Virginia. They've had a lot of snow in the Appalachians there in West Virginia this year. So the rain is going to may cause some problems there. And also flash flood watches. There were a lot of flash flood watches and warnings up earlier from Ark in Arkansas, in northern Arkansas. Those have expired. But we still have flash flood watches in southern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, western Kentucky, and northwestern Tennessee. And you could maybe pick out those little tiny red boxes, and those are current working warnings. A couple of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in north central New Mexico. And then you go up to the northwest, where it's been a very, very quiet winter there, very dry. They're getting a fairly solid rainstorm coming in from the Pacific, and there's cold air that's coming down from Canada. So we've got winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories up, warnings for the Cascades, advisories for the Sierra Nevadas, flash flood watches on the western side of those mountains. We have also winter storm warnings up in central and northern Idaho, western Montana, southeast Idaho, western Wyoming, and for a few counties in northernmost Utah. So the action is shifting to the west for the time being. Also, want to point out, very busy in Hawaii, Joe. They have winter storm warnings up for the Big Island for the high peaks in on the Big Island. They have uh, there's a flash flood warning at work now. I'm not sure which island it is because it's one of the smaller ones, and also an array of special marine warnings. And I just thought I'd bring up the Molokai radar, and it's pretty loaded. Stuff coming in from from the tropics, running up northeastward over the islands. Honolulu is probably getting blasted with some rain here in a big way, and you can see some heavier thunderstorms that are in the mix. So the Hawaiian Islands are getting a big dose of heavy rains and also some rather strong winds. Meantime, we've got our storm system here. You can see the rotation with the upper trough that is back into northern Texas, and moisture is streaming northward now. Clouds have arrived. This is the clouds coming in now, Joe's. That's probably going to put the temperatures. If it was going to stay clear for a little while, you probably see those temperatures really drop solidly. But clouds are coming in, and you also have a little bit of a south wind that's developing. So I think that puts a floor into how low temperatures can get tonight. away from the coast.
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not next to my thermometer, so I don't know what we have here locally in Putnam Valley. I do think that with the south wind, the light south wind, and the cloud cover, though, Joe, after midnight, the temperatures may actually stabilize and actually may begin to rise a little bit toward daybreak, which may actually help the cause, if you will, in getting the temperatures above freezing and precluding very much in the way of icing. Although even just a small amount of icing, a slight glaze, can still cause real problems on roadways. So be extra cautious tomorrow morning en route to work and school. And again, some of you who are in the lower Hudson Valley may very well have a 2 hour delay, not necessarily south of 287. My daughter in law teaches in Harrison, which is down at the bottom of Westchester County, closer to the coast. And it's not likely that she will have a delay. On the other hand, my son, who teaches not far from West Point, he may very well have a delay because, again, it tends to be colder up here, and we may have a little bit of an icing problem for a short while tomorrow morning.
Right. It's still mainly clear across Connecticut, although clouds are starting to roll in now. On the last hourly observations, except for New Haven, which was 33, everybody was in the mid 20s. So it's cold there. In the Hudson Valley, White Plains is 28, Somers is 28, Brewster 27, Newburgh 30, Montgomery 25, 27 at Otisville, Warwick at 32. And everybody's got either an light east wind or a light south wind. And well, some of the stations are now reporting mostly cloudy skies. So yeah, you're right. Everything's probably going to come to a halt as far as the temperatures are concerned. They're only going to be able to get so low. In New Jersey, just check it out in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, temperatures are sitting at around 31, 32. And already the clouds have rolled in, and the winds are from the south, light, mostly 5 miles an hour or less. But there's a fair amount of moisture here. Now, this system's actually probably peaked in intensity already. This is not going to be the strongest system in the world. So it's really about how much of this moisture can hang on as it moves eastward. And in the northwest, you're starting to see a wall of clouds coming in through Washington State, and a storm system that's offshore beginning to push its moisture inland there. And in fact, we've got precipitation now rolling into the west coast of Washington and northwest Oregon. Meanwhile, in the Ohio Valley, it is across the lower Ohio Valley. It's raining steadily and heavy in some places from southern Indiana, western Kentucky, actually all through the state of Kentucky. Some rain has moved into southern West Virginia and into western Virginia. We've got some showers and thunderstorms extending southward from eastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, western Mississippi, down through Louisiana. Nice little squall line there that has developed. There are no severe thunderstorm watches up, but the Storm Prediction Center does have a marginal risk in Louisiana and Mississippi tonight, and a 2% tornado risk. The slight risk that they had earlier is gone. A small area of marginal risk is indicated for the Florida Panhandle and southern Mississippi, and a small portion of southwest Georgia for Friday. And on day three, no thunderstorms are forecast around the country. So there's a plus. And as far as precipitation amounts are concerned from WPC over the next 7 days, much of what you see in the Northeast and in the Ohio Valley, from what I was looking, is probably front end loaded here. So it's this system maybe the only one of consequence over the next 7 days. 2.5 to 2.5 inch amounts in the lower Ohio Valley, across Kentucky into West Virginia. A half to 3/4 being indicated from coastal Maine down into Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. And then it thins out to 1/4 of an inch as you move through the rest of the southeast. And in the west, Rain, even down as far south as San Diego, getting some a few hundredths in the next 7 days. Looks like 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter from LA northward, and then you get to San Francisco and you start to get into the 4 and 5 inch rain amounts there, and even some 10 to 15 inch liquid amounts in the Sierra Nevadas. You know that's going to mean for some big snows, and the heavy rains go up through the Pacific Northwest. Also, heavy precip in the Northern Rockies, with some areas showing 3 and 4 inches or more of liquid equivalent. So we're talking about mega inches of snow. Here's the ice forecast for tomorrow morning. Oh, I had it up. I got to bring it back. Give me a second. Uh, I mean, you look at the forecast icing amounts, Joe. Really, we're talking about a couple of hundredths, a couple of places, 0.03, 0.04, a couple of 0.05s. I mean, that's not enough to cause serious issues, but it's certainly enough to cause you to go slip sliding away if you're not careful. But again, I'm thinking, this is a race between the rain arriving and the temperatures going above 32.
Absolutely. That's going to be the key. When will that rain arrive? And if it gets here early enough, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, places north of 287 most definitely will have a bit of a problem for a short while. And as you just mentioned, Joe, it's not going to be a tremendous amount of ice, maybe even only a few hundredths of an inch. But again, one of the worst mornings I've ever had driving to work. This is when I was, getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning to go to work. Was when I went outside and I saw my driveway. It was glistening, and I said to myself, It almost looks like somebody took some of that silver glitter and put it on, spread it out across the driveway. I said, "Oh, isn't that pretty? Isn't that lovely? It looks really nice." Didn't realize that that tiny little bit of ice, and it must have been no more than a couple of hundredths of an inch, if that much, caused some of the worst driving that I ever had to work. I actually skidded and slipped more than a few times on the way to work that morning. It was kind of almost like a harrowing experience, a white knuckle type situation. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case tomorrow morning, but again, what we're going to be playing with is marginally cold air. And remember, it's not so much the actual air temperature. Remember that, you're relying on the temperature of the surface that you're going to be driving on, which in many cases will be a degree or two colder than the actual air temperature. So if your thermometer in the car or on your porch is saying 33 and you say, "Oh, it's great, it's above freezing, no problem," just remember that the ground, which has been very cold all through the night, probably is just a tad below freezing. And if you have precipitation falling upon that and starts to accrete or starts to accumulate even slightly into a little bit of a glaze, you could have a problem tomorrow morning. 5, 6 a.m., I think, is when we're going to start seeing precip arrive in much of the lower Hudson Valley. And again, with temperatures at or just below freezing, that could make for a slick and slippery go for a while early in the morning tomorrow. And that's why the National Weather Service, by the way, has issued for much of the Hudson Valley, as north of 287, a winter weather advisory for the possibility, not for snow, but again, for an icy glaze.
Sal Patchy, thank you for hitting Super Chat. He's got an astronomy question. Um, you want to take it now, or you want to wait till I finish?
We could take it right now. I think I mentioned this. Somebody asked the same question a couple of weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago. Sal saying he's heard that the star Betelgeuse in the constellation of Orion the Hunter, combined with another star, will go nova or supernova. Is there a time period to watch? Will it be soon? And what effect will the Earth see? Now, if you don't know about stellar evolution, stars produce energy by fusing hydrogen into helium deep within their cores. So when a star accumulates a sufficient amount of helium in its core, its energy output increases significantly, and then it begins to swell into a red giant or a supergiant, which is what Betelgeuse is right now. Now, in such cases, the core of the star produces successively heavier elements to balance the incessive crush of gravity. But once the core begins to create iron in its center, that's when the star's days are more or less numbered. The formation of elements heavier than iron, iron, blah, consumes
Uh,
rather than produces energy. In other words, it eats up energy rather than produces energy, which is how a star can last for so many millions or billions of years. Eventually, the core no longer can support the star's tremendous weight as it accumulates more and more iron. It collapses. And when it collapses, boom! A cataclysmic supernova explosion occurs. Betelgeuse is in its final stage. And Sal, if you're waiting, you can have a bit of a wait. It could explode anytime within the next 100,000 years. People are saying, well, maybe it can explode next year. I don't think so. Or 10 years from now, or 50 years, no. Probably it's going to be a long term thing, long after you and I have gone to a different sector of the universe, that will happen. And when it does happen, we will see an exceedingly bright star, maybe more brilliant than Venus in our nighttime sky, maybe even visible during the daytime hours. It won't last very long, maybe a year or two, and then that'll fade away. But it should be an amazing sight for whoever happens to be around 50 or 100,000 years from now to see that star go bye bye.
all right. Back to our system here in the east. This is not going to be a big snow producer. It's basically going to produce a 2 to maybe 4 inches, a couple of pockets of 5 or 6 in along the north of the I-90 corridor, and even up into Maine and New Hampshire. They don't even have advisories up yet for this. They're only looking at numbers in the 2, 3, 4 inch range, and in some places even just an inch or two. So this is not going to be a big deal. Excuse me. And there's also some snow in the forecast for the northern Great Lakes, but again here too, not a big deal. 4, 5, 6 inches, 6 inch amounts. You got to go out west where if you look in Washington State, I don't know what these peaks are, but 59, 76, 92. These are in the mountains to the east of Seattle and Tacoma. And those heavy snows continue down the Cascades into Oregon. Also, some double-digit snow amounts up in central and northern Idaho, as well as western Wyoming and western Montana. So you got to go there, folks, if you want snow. So let's run through the models as to what's going on here. And of course, there's storminess coming into the west for Friday, and it's already the precip is arriving along the coast of Washington. Our storm system, our low is in northeast Missouri by daybreak tomorrow, and then moving straight east across Illinois, Indiana, southern Pennsylvania, and then it'll just finally pop out somewhere east of Cape Cod. It's a very, very flat looking system. And even the snow on the northern side, you can see the European produces an absolute minimal amount of snow. Also, not really showing anything as far as sleet or freezing rain, which is interesting. And that's why I'm kind of leaning away on the idea that maybe this is not going to be much of a big deal. Will dry out over the weekend. Meanwhile, the snows continue in the west. There's a low that's going to be moving across the Dakotas, and there's a warm front with that. The next high is already in Maine by Sunday, and there'll be some snow ahead of the warm front, but most of that, if not all of it, is going to go by in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then we're probably going to be on the mild side early next week. Somewhat, yeah, I mean, somewhat mild, nothing crazy, because there's another front that comes through late on Monday as a large high starts to spread out from Montana and spreads out into the Great Lakes and Northeast. It's nothing exceptional as far as cold air is concerned. Temperatures will probably be close to average for this time of year. And then we may see a more genuine warm up. Looks like a bit of a warm front sets up on Wednesday with a little bit of precipitation there. to the north, and we get into a pretty good southwest flow. Next Thursday could be quite warm here. I think we could see maybe 60s. Wouldn't shock me. Maybe even 70 if we get any kind of sun out of it. And then after that goes by, the frontal boundary is going to lay around, and who knows how real this is with regards to a wave on the front or not. That we're talking about 10 or 11 days away. I do want to just really quickly, there's a few things going on in the long range that I think we need to pay attention to see how this winds up playing out. I'm going to bring up the GFS, the stratosphere, and the 10 millibars, and I'm going to go back to the 12Z run. So the last 4 or 5 runs of the GFS, we've been talking about the fact that this polar vortex has been stretching back and forth um, numerous times since the middle of December, and every time we seem to get one of these stretches is when we get into some cold air. But the models seem to be wanting to split the polar vortex in two around the middle part, starting at around the 8th or 9th of February. And whenever usually when we get a split in the polar vortex like this, makes the atmosphere pretty volatile. And if it couples down to the surface, this could be a setup maybe for the second half of February and in the first part of March. Perhaps we'll go to a negative North Atlantic oscillation, a negative NAO, with the polar vortex splitting like this. I think we just need to watch it. There's no certitude, there's no certainty that this is going to happen, because all through the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've seen a few runs of this where it tried to split the vortex, and instead all it wound up doing is being a long stretch back and forth. But if we come back on Sunday and we're seeing the models, because then it'll be a little bit closer in terms of the shorter range. If the models are still showing a split, then maybe we could start having a little more confidence that the split will happen, because that could have bullish implications for the second half of February. No guarantees from the management. And I guess we could also bring up the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation here.
Well,
And
Dr. Cohen, Judah Cohen, who is who I guess we could call Mr. Polar Vortex, in his latest tweet, do we still call them that, even though it's X?
yeah,
Anyway,
I think they still call them tweets.
he writes, I thought that the polar vortex put on quite the show in January, but now looking at the latest trends in the model forecast out for the next 2 weeks, February seems to be telling January, hold my beer. Definitely an interesting, but I think a very challenging upcoming forecast period.
Well, when we come back on Sunday, if the models are still showing the split, then I think we could start to, see if we can figure out where that's going to take us. Um, we've had big splits in the polar vortex in when we had the 4 nor'easters, the whole atmosphere went crazy. The last couple of weeks in February and through the whole month of March. I'm not saying it's a repeat performance because nothing ever happens exactly. But if we still see the models doing it when we come back on Sunday, we could have probably a higher degree of confidence. And the other thing with the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is very interesting, is it looks like it's about to go into one of the warm phases, but it immediately retreats. You follow the green line. It retreats into the neutral zone, which basically takes the shortest path through these warm phases, and it looks like it may want to emerge in phase 7 when it gets out of there, which is gets us much closer to the cold phases, which are 8, 1, and 2. So this will be something else to watch to see if, because this is all part of the same, this is all part of the equation as well, with regards to what we're going to be doing for the second half of the winter season. So it ain't dead yet, okay? The body is still breathing. Might seem like it's on a respirator, but it ain't dead yet, folks.
Winter's only half over. Astronomical winter's only half over, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. I haven't figured. I usually each year I'll figure out the exact time, the exact moment between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox, and post it on Facebook. So it's coming early next week. So we've only have half a winter that we've gone through, and who knows the second half of it. Don't forget, last year we had not one but two tremendous snowstorms that hit portions of New York and New England in the final week of March and the beginning of April. So you never know sometimes. And that I know a lot of the ski areas threw the towel in by that time and figured, well, that's it. It's a lousy winter, and then they had more snow than they knew what to do with. So you never know sometimes what the weather will do at any given moment. It could turn very quickly, and so we'll see what happens late February and on into March, and sometimes even early April.
Agreed. Uh, so I know you have Briller Jeopardy, but I'm kind of tired. So I think I would like to wrap the show up at this point, and we can hold that for Sunday.
We'll hold it for Groundhog Day Sunday then.
Oh, Sunday's the rodent day?
That's the day.
Oh, all right. I'll have to dig up my recipe for roasted groundhog. All right, folks. 86 likes tonight, which is not bad considering, we're not dealing with any kind of big storm. So usually the audience doesn't flock to the podcast unless there's a big storm around. But we appreciate the 87 likes. Would have been nice if we got to 100 likes again. But I think we're going to fall short unless some of you hit the like button. Oh, 94 likes, Joe. You see, a little bit of begging always helps. Anyhow, everybody on the chat board, I hope that you have a really nice Friday and a really nice Saturday. And we'll be back Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can now ring the bell because we're at 103.
Thank you all.
Thank you for taking us over the top. 108. Most appreciated. So we'll see
Wonderful.
you Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. There's no football this Sunday. So that's good. So we'll see you then. Nighty night.
Good night, folks.